Hello, I'm Amy, and today I wanted to tell you just a little bit more about some of the things that I talked about in the first video, which was Breaking Taboo, the nonprofit organization that I'm interning for, and then also my personal journey. Breaking Taboo, that is a nonprofit, and they are based in Los Angeles, and their goal is to try and break down the stigma that surrounds talking about mental health and hopefully to help prevent suicide. So the way that they're doing that is through social media. They have 3 accounts, 4 if you count YouTube as well, but the 3 accounts are Instagram, Facebook, they have a page, and then Twitter. So what they're doing is they're using those 3 accounts to kind of highlight some stories of people who have had issues with their mental health and who are probably a little bit further along in their recovery and therefore more willing to talk about it. And the reason that they want people who are more willing to talk about it is because there is such a strong stigma with talking about your mental health that it's not very likely right now that we're going to find people who are very new in their recovery willing to go through their story. So they're doing that, and they're also selecting people that they would like to be in a documentary that they'll be putting out, I believe, sometime next year. So they find people who are ready to talk, they tell their stories, and then hopefully through that we will start up the conversation just a little bit more, and maybe people will be willing to get help sooner, or perhaps people will encourage others to reach out to people that they know are in need. And the reason that I got involved with this group is because of my own journey. I was diagnosed within the last couple of years as being depressed and having PTSD based on my job and different things that I do. So that actually came around, I probably had those symptoms around 6 years ago, but I wasn't ready to get help because I was scared. I was worried that the people that I work with maybe wouldn't trust me, or they'd look at me differently, or they'd feel like they had to baby me, they had to watch me, and that it would change their opinions of who I am. So I hid it out of fear. I think that maybe I told my parents, but that took a very long time as well. I definitely didn't get help. And I think the fear is the biggest thing that leads to that stigma, is because you don't want your life to change, and you don't want the way for people who are working with you or connecting with you, you don't want their relationship with you to change either. But the big thing is that during that time you're usually struggling, and you're usually going through a really rough time where you could use their support and you could use some help. If you had a broken leg, your friends would think you were pretty dumb if you decided, oh, no, I'm just going to wait and see if this goes away on its own, or I'm going to hide it from you guys because I don't want anybody to know that I have a broken leg. They would expect that you'd go to the emergency room or at least to the hospital and you'd get it fixed. So why not do that when your soul and your brain are hurting too? There are studies out there that show that when you go through a trauma, there are changes in your brain. And when you start to recover from that trauma, then your brain starts to change back to the way that it was before the trauma. So, I mean, there are physical differences that come about when you deal with something like depression or PTSD or general anxiety disorder, anything like that. So I think that we just need to set aside our fear sometimes and be courageous, because if I had gotten help 6 years ago, I would not have wasted 6 years of my life being sad and being scared and being angry. The things that I went through changed me as a person. People thought that I was condescending. They thought that I was angry and negative, which is not the person that I was before everything happened. People tend to think that I'm a little bit rainbows and butterflies, a little bit too positive, and that's my dog, also being rainbows. So if I had reached out earlier, I would not have wasted so much time. I would have been connecting with people. I would have been living my life, and probably I I would be so much further along. All of those things in my life when I was young that I thought, oh, by the time I'm 35, this is where it's going to be. I might be closer to that. Although I've also learned that those expectations that I had when I was young, I'm glad I didn't go that route because it's not necessarily where I want to be. Um, but I wouldn't have wasted so much time just kind of living in my fear and anxiety. And so I hope that by telling my story that maybe somebody out there who needs help will reach out to somebody else. Reach out to a psych doc, reach out to a psychiatrist, a therapist, a counselor, whatever it is that you need, even if it's just a friend or your priest or a chaplain or something like that. Because a lot of times just talking about it is going to be a weight off of your shoulder. When you have these types of mental health issues, it can affect your health in so many different ways. You start to struggle with sleep. You start to struggle with your friends. You start to act out sometimes where maybe you start drinking more or doing drugs. Perhaps you lose your job or you get cut back. You lose salary. You lose rank. You lose out on a promotion. All of a sudden, your finances are in trouble. Your family's in trouble, and you're in trouble. It can affect your sleep, and it can actually lead to physical illnesses where your body is reacting to the stress that you are feeling and that you're not letting out. So there are so many different benefits to reaching out and getting help, not just physically and mentally, but in the rest of your life, in all of the different things that you probably need. So yeah, that's pretty much kind of what I wanted to say, is just to let you know once again my personal story and what breaking taboo is all about. And I'm sure I'll talk about that a little bit more, and I'll go more in depth with my journey and where I plan to go from here. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll come back.